Was ist los? It's your German boy, and welcome back to Planetarian. Anyway, we're still fixing the projector as we speak, and with any semblance of getting intoxicated gone right out the window, let's just get back into this. Do you plan on standing here forever?
はい、お客様がいらっしゃった時に投影中止のお詫びと説明をしなければなりませんので。
You're going to rust.
ご心配には及びません。私の筐体は第2種業務防水仕様になっておりますので、少々の雨でしたら問題なく稼働できます。
Is that so? I didn't know how good her waterproofing was, but she was definitely a first-class chatterbox. And if she's going to stay here and make a racket, since that meant the projection room would be left in relative peace. I'm going to go back to work.
はい、イエナさんをよろしくお願いします。
She made a profound gesture of gratitude. After that, she turned around to face the rain once more.
プラネタリウムはいかがでしょう。どんな時も決して消えることのない美しい無休のきらめき。
Even if you try attracting customers, the projector is still beyond repair.
いいえ、これは発声練習です。いつお客様が来てもいいように万全の体制でお迎えしなければなりませんので。
Is that so? Later. As I waved my hand over my shoulder, her voice once again rang out amidst the rain.
満天の星々が皆様をお待ちしています。プラネタリウムはいかがでしょう。
The stench of rust and sulfur wafted from the Wasser. It was not the fault of the water purifier. Nein, the thing that was broken was the atmosphere of this little planet itself. Even if one could somehow extract rain directly from a rain cloud, the water that resulted would not be pure at all. If one dug for thousands of meters underground, one might strike upon a still untainted groundwater artery. But that was not a prize that a junker could put his hands on, and it was not worth its volume in alcohol anyway. As I thought these things, I unsealed my final MRE. The hardtack biscuit had no flavor to it at all. If I stayed here any longer, I would die. I washed down the biscuits that had become powder in my mouth with the water from the canteen. I'd seen death countless times, and I'd also imagined what my own death would be like. A stream of blood cutting its way through filthy mud, violent steam rising from a thigh burned by a flamethrower mine, the intolerable stench of so many blisters, the feeling of bones shattering underfoot like so much fragile china, the sound of water drumming on the stock of an assault rifle stabbed through a burial mound, the weight of wet soil being shoveled down an artificial flower that my mother had fashioned out of precious scraps of cloth. Surely this, too, was the way that my life would be erased. In an instant if I was lucky, and in several days of unbearable agony if I was not. The rain was the constant companion of death. Death thus had no jurisdiction of its own. The rain that did not cease would never allow such a thing. Yet now the specter of my death was under a dry roof. It was there in the junk heap of parts, simple and artless like a child's doll, suffusing everything in the room. If I were just to raise a hand, I could partake in it at any time. I still had a hard time believing that this was really happening. As I removed the screws of the projector, one by one, it became increasingly difficult to remember where I was. It was almost as if I were disassembling my very own spirit, right then and there. Time began to flow as vaguely as mist, and the world shrank to the narrow confines of this projection room. As I polished them, the precision lenses regained their frozen radiance, one by one. Was the rain even falling outside right now? I could not even say that with confidence anymore. Dozens of hours ago, I was struggling to breathe in the midst of the rain. I daubed my cheeks with mud in order to evade the thermal scans of the Menschenjägers. I could not recall any more of what I was afraid of at that time. In this sarcophagus city filled only with death, I was in the embrace of a broken machine and the subsystems under its rule. Like the fisherman of the old world legend who had been swallowed by a giant fish and then made the best of it by fishing inside the belly of the beast, I immersed myself in this work.
お客様、お疲れ様です。
Were there any customers?
いえ、本日はお客様お一人でした。
I see.
でも、きっと明日にはたくさんのお客様が来てくださると思います。
And the evening was completely under her demands.
それで最近、最新型の905シリーズが1階エントランスの総合案内に2体配属されたんです。
Her soft voice resounded in the projection room as if to soak it with light. In my current position, I could not see where she was. She was probably gazing away intently at my back as I worked up the stepladder.
どちらも FT 型筐体なので、私より11センチほど頭頂高が高くてより大人びた形態をしています。フェイスマスクもオーダーメイドでとても精密なんですよ。
Not content with explaining just herself, she had launched into a soliloquy about the functionalities of all her relatives with pride.
それに905シリーズは涙を流すことができるんです。
Tears?
はい、涙です。当デパートの2体は公衆接客業務用なので機能がソフトオミットされていますが、先代機種である9000シリーズに初搭載された定評ある機能なんです。重ねて申しますと、等身大の量販コンパニオンロボットとしては業界初の機能です。
Certainly that is important or something. As I found the leads around the terminals of the motor, I continued to try to, my way out of the conversation.
お客様、お聞きしてよろしいでしょうか。
Bus,
涙を流すというのはどのような感じなのでしょう。
who knows? Can't remember when I last tried.
涙というものは悲しい時や苦痛を感じた時に意図せず流れ出るものと認識していますが、
That's exactly how it is.
そうですか。
Her voice trailed off at the end. She was probably cocking her head doubtfully again.
なんと申しますか。私は涙を流すことにとても憧れてしまいます。私は廉価版なので涙は流せないものですから。
It's not such a good thing
そ
anyways.
うなんですか。
Yeah, it isn't. Her own duties finished, she refused to leave no, to be more accurate, her friend, the projector's side. She was just as talkative as ever, but by this point I'd grown accustomed to it. I had learned that the aggregate amount of conversation could be drastically shortened if I simply gave some response to every important conversational point rather than ignoring her. It was the same way one might play a companion to an old man who'd grown fond of talking.
お客様、そろそろ厚生電球を取り付けてみるというのはいかがでしょう。
We're not ready for that yet. Just wait a bit longer.
そうですか。
As a consequence of the restoration of electrical current in the machine, I learned that of the 4 bulbs, only 2 were still functional. Those 2 bulbs would have to suffice for the projection. In other words, spares for them did not exist anywhere on this world. Now that electricity to the projector had been restored, If during these repairs I touched the tool to the wrong place and caused a short, that would be the end of both the repair and me. Because I knew this, I was putting on the finishing touches very slowly. Move the latitude axis upward, little by little. Do it slowly.
はい。安全のため旋回範囲外に退避してください。
She replied with an earnest and professional tone. I got down onto the ground and leaned onto the projector pedestals that the stepladder stood against. The manual console turned out not to be necessary in the operation of the projector at all. A thick communication cable stretched forth from the electrical operations panel located at the base of the machine's scaffolding. As she pulled on it, it wriggled on the floor, and after it coiled upon itself twice, it was interfaced with a connector located in her left ear. In other words, she and the projector were now connected by wire. Rather than being bizarre, it felt more like some kind of ritual lost in time. According to her, this was an emergency measure that I am ashamed to have to resort to or something. As if to show off her embarrassment, her long information ribbon flashed through a sequence of highly exaggerated warning colors. While ordinarily she would be able to control the projector using RF signaling just as she did with the air conditioning and the lighting, the projector's wireless receiver was completely broken and beyond my ability to repair. I'm clear. Go ahead.
はい。安全を確認しました。それでは投影機を駆動します。
The old-style motor began to buzz like a horsefly on the verge of death. At the same time, the bearings creaked and the projector itself moved slightly. We're doing it, boys! We're doing it! However, nothing else happened. The smell of oil began to waft from the overheating engine, which was revving in vain to try to move the projector. Stop it!
はい。モーターを停止しました。
The horsefly-like buzzing died away and silence washed back into the room. I got back onto the stepladder and took another look. The waste heat radiating from the gearbox cover warmed my cheeks. Even after all I did, it still won't move. What I knew was that there was no flaw in the motor itself. That said, whether the problem lay in too much friction on the main shaft, or in improperly engaged gears in the gearbox, or in some other kind of intraceable problem, as I dug through my very limited knowledge base about this kind of thing, I could feel her eyes upon me.
お客様、お聞きしてよろしいでしょうか。
What is it?
イエナさんの修理はあとどのぐらいで完了する見込みでしょうか。
Who knows? I can't even venture a guess right now.
明日午前11時からの投影には間に合うでしょうか。
I hope so. I don't know. Pray to God if you like.
どの神様にお祈りすればいいでしょうか。
As she very naturally reeled off this response, I stopped mid-motion. What did you say?
はい。ギリシャ神話でしたら、ゼウス、アポロン、ヘルメス、アルテミス、デメテル、ポセイドン。
She continued this meandering litany like a phonetic cipher from another world. Some of these names were familiar to me. Gaia and Persephone were the names of two fortress colonies long ago, and Atropos and Megara were nicknames of the heavy mobile artillery platforms used to destroy them. You sure know a lot of stuff.
ありがとうございます。私はロボットですから、覚えておくのは得意なんです。
She said, looking truly delighted.
ですが、当プラネタリウムには私よりもっと星のことに詳しいお客様もお越しになります。
Her incessant praise of people was completely void of sarcasm.
それで、どの神様にお祈りすればいいでしょうか。
Just pick whichever one you like best.
はい、それではディオニッソスに祈ることにします。
Who the hell is that?
はい、ディオニッソスは酒と豊穣の神で、英語名ではバッカスです。
Wine and fertility, huh? Yumemi, are you trying to tell me something? That did not sound bad at all. But even if I were to pray long and hard, the divine favor of the gods was just a bit hard to come by in this day and age.
お客様の思考にぴったりかと思いまして。
She added with a triumphant look on her face. It seems that if I'd been registered in her database as a... Oh my god, involuntary shade! Oh my god! Well, you're not too far off. She looked gently at me as I made a wry expression, and then a smile that radiated nothing but innocence floated up to her face. Pray to your god, not to mine.
私の神様ですか?
The god of robots. If there are as many gods as you say, then surely at least one of them must be yours. She quickly turned serious. Eyes wide open, she seemed to think about something for a while. Then she finally gives me a very familiar response.
私の基本データベースおよび蓄積データベースには該当する情報は見つかりませんでした。
I see. That sucks.
その神様は近年新しく追加されたものでしょうか。その場合、私のデータベースにはすぐには反映されない場合があります。誠に申し訳ありません。
The gorgeous litany of the names of the gods were, to her, the same as a checklist of stockpiled parts.
ところでお客様、私が思いますに、そろそろ光静電球を取り付けてみるのも一興ではないでしょうか。
Look, I know you're as excited as I am to get this project done, but you don't have to ask me every 30 minutes or however it's been. I'll let you know when we're ready, alright? It seems that she'd been born with this enthusiasm, close to zealotry for her professional duties. As I stood there dumbfounded, she gracefully bent her hips and picked up one of the light bulbs on the floor. She hugged it to her chest and then moved toward me. As she walked toward me, the cable connected to her writhed about on the floor like a python. I became very worried that the gyrating cable might damage the other light bulbs. Don't walk about with that cable attached to you. Sit where you are until I call you.
はい、わかりました。
She obediently bowed her head in assent, stopped walking, and then sat down in a nearby chair. And to my everlasting satisfaction, she said no more for a little while. The sounds of me grappling with the gearbox and the clinking of tools were the only things that could be heard in the room for a time. But eventually, she opened her mouth.
以前にこんなことがありました。
What is it this time around?
以前の投影で神話上の天国を特集したことがあるんです。それで打ち合わせをした折に話題が天国のことになったんですが。
She continued her nostalgic musings as she hugged the light bulb close in an embrace.
私がロボットにも天国はありますかと質問すると、スタッフの皆さんはもちろんあるよと教えてくれました。ロボットの天国は故障も消耗部品交換もソフトウェアバグもバッテリー切れもない素晴らしいところだと皆さんはおっしゃっていました。ロボットの天国ではロボットが願い事をすれば何でも叶うのだとおっしゃっていました。
I see. So they were cracking such frivolous jokes while they cursed the lack of customers and sipped steaming hot coffee. There must have been many scenes like this in these ruins. And of course, she must have joined in on these conversations. No doubt she had learned many of her characteristic phrases and stereotyped professional jargon, the trifling contradiction in her knowledge base, and her absolutely absurd patterns of action from her human co-workers. The god of robots lives in the heaven of robots. Remember this.
はい、重要知識として登録しました。
She replied as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Or, shall we say, her pattern of conversation with me had finally been established. Now that I'd gotten used to it, it really wasn't so bad. Looking down at the light bulb held against her chest, she again fell silent for a little while. As she did this, she somehow looked far, far older than the age she'd been constructed to look.
お客様、お聞きしてよろしいですか？
Sure, what is it?
お客様は神様にお願いをしたことはありますか？
9. Well, I may certainly have prayed, but never expected anything.
そうですか。
And you?
はい、私はロボットの神様にお願いしたいことがあります。
For the projector to be fixed, you mean?
いえ、それは改めて願わなくてもお客様が叶えてくれますので。
I almost burst into laughter at the way she was speaking of it as if it were already a done deal. Then what will you pray for?
はい、天国を。
But just as she mouthed these words, she instantly halted. What is it?
大変申し訳ありませんが、あと3分で深夜0時となりますので、私は通常業務設定通り、現状にてスリープモードに移行させていただきます。
It's already that late? That meant I'd been at work for 5 hours already since she had returned to the projection room. As I stretched while standing atop the stepladder, she said, still seated,
起床時間は明朝9時です。それでは、おやすみなさい。
Very well. Good night. Hey, wait, are you going to sleep still hugging that thing? She was indeed still holding the fixed star light bulb to her chest. She continued to smile as if she had nothing to worry about in the whole world. Just like that, she closed her eyes. I think this is a nice place to leave things off. She's got a huge feels train moment right there. So anyway, hey, this has been your boy. Auf Wiedersehen.